Hey guys, welcome back. This is Library of Orthonc, LOTR TCG, back with another Lord of the Rings TCG video for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber and get notified when we create new content. So today I got some feedback from some of our subscribers about doing some variety videos that aren't just all the deck text that we do a lot of. So we've currently been working our way through the movie block deck text, and so I thought it'd be really fun to do a movie block top 10 video for you guys. So today we're gonna diverge a little bit and do a little different video for us than normal, and it's going to be a top 10. And so the top 10 for today is top 10 movie block free people's characters. So it's going to be rated specifically for the movie block, and then any free people's characters, so companions and allies. And excuse me, what we're rating them on is going to be largely, the impact on the format, the movie block format, and if the card creates a big impact in that, and so we're gonna look at that, and then we're also going to look at kind of criteria of how good are they in the main deck that the card is specialized for, but also how splashable of a card is it? How many different decks can it be good in as a splash? So that's kind of the factors that we're looking at for this top 10 list. So it's not just like my favorite cards or the coolest foils or anything like that. It's essentially the 10 best cards for movie block free people's characters. So let's get started. First off, at number 10, we have Éowyn, the Lady of Ithilien. A lot of these cards do happen to be gorgeous foils, but that is not what they're in here for per se. So Éowyn, the Lady of Ithilien, is an impactful card largely for wounding strategies. So archery, rainbow wounding, those types of decks. She's actually not generally great in a Rohan deck. So her primary use actually is in those decks with multiple cultures with wounding strategies, kind of alongside Legolas Greenleaf and Elron to heal. Those kind of decks. So, but she is very strong because for those of you who aren't familiar with this card, her effect is you can exert her to choose an opponent. That opponent must wound a minion for each wound on each minion skirmishing Éowyn. And so the huge thing there is if you get a minion with multiple wounds, then you can get let's say you're skirmishing a minion who has 2 wounds on it. Well, you can exert Éowyn twice and make the opposing player wound 4 minions. So that's very fantastic. This card gets even better outside movie block when you can make her defender +1. Movie block, you can usually just set her up with like a Brago horse to get an extra exertion as a good combo. But there's some horses later on that give her defender +1, as well as there's coifs that you can put on her, but again, sorry, we're here to talk about movie block today, so that's why she's just number 10 on our list here, though, is she doesn't have some of those synergies that you get to see her later on in the War of the Ring block. But this is our number 10, Éowyn, Lady of Ithilien. Moving on then to our number 9, we have Gilgaled, the Elven High King. So Gilgaled is from the Reflection set, of course, when they introduced, the bigger companions from that starting sequence of the movie. And he's just a fantastic card. He's one of the main reasons why elves as a single culture can exist in movie block. And so you can play an entirely elven deck. Largely it's because of this guy. So he's not very splashable because he does require a spotting of 2 elven companions. So he's pretty much for strictly a dedicated elf deck. But in the dedicated elf deck, he's very impactful. It gives you, your most powerful, most vitality character. He has a great ability on him that allows you to double and triple move by cleaning minions off the table in the regroup phase. Combines incredibly well with his artifact Eyegloss. So for all those reasons, he's a very strong staple of an elf deck. And that's why he makes it to our list at number 9. And of course, Elves is a very strong deck in the movie block. So the number 9 is Gilgaled, the Elven High King. The next card we have is Faramir, the son of Denethor. Again, this is a super cool foil with the white tree there foiling on his vest. But Faramir, son of Denethor, I'd say is a very unassuming card. You know, you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, that's a decent card. You know, pretty statistically average, pretty, mediocre looking. But where it really shines is this ability that just says opponent may not play skirmish events or use skirmish special abilities during skirmishes involving Faramir. So that is just so good if you're up against like a Ninja Golem or against someone who's trying to use skirmish special abilities. You just put them on Faramir and he just blanks those abilities. So that is incredibly strong. Not an effect that there's a lot of in movie block. He's one of the only, if not the only way I know to, that's commonly played that cancels skirmish special abilities on minions. There's some of that kind of stuff later on in expanded with perspective and stuff like that. But this just blanks those minions, so that's why it's so huge. So obviously this is great in an elves and men deck because you can put a Last Alliance on this guy and boost him up to a 10 power. So then he's a 10 power guy that cancels minions skirmish abilities. Also, he is very splashable. Dwarves will play this just again as another companion to be able to take out your opponent's abilities. So, like I said, very unassuming card, but when you play with it, you realize it is actually very strong and gives you a lot of certainty when you walk into a skirmish. You know exactly what's going to happen. That's no surprises. So that's what Faramir is for. So he makes our list at number 8. So yes, number 8. Moving on then to our number 7. This is actually our first and I believe only ally on the list, and that is Elron, the Herald to Gilgaled. Just a fantastic card. Ironically, actually not played in a dedicated elf deck, but sees tons of play in elves and men. Of course, he'll be generally your go-to elf because of his synergy with Legolas is just so good. For those of you who don't know, of course, he heals himself at the start of each turn. He heals himself twice, and then he exerts twice to heal a companion. So it's just a loop of healing that just goes on and on. Again, just a beautiful card, beautiful foil with again hit the pattern on his vest there and the crown. But again, we're not rating foils. I just have to when I see him. So, but really the only thing that is bad about this card is that he is very expensive at 4 and he doesn't give you really a board presence. He's more of like a healing condition. So that's something to keep an eye on is when you drop that down, make sure that you can afford the extra minion that you're going to get by playing this. And then, in terms of other than elves and men, he's very good again in an archery type deck where you're going to be healing Legolas or Eowyn or someone like that, and just allowing them to re-exert to reuse their abilities over and over. Even very good in a Hobbit deck, like a Hobbit Hospital deck, to get again more extra healing on all of your hobbits. So a very, very versatile card. I have a ton of this guy in my movie block decks. So he's just very versatile, very much a staple of the format. And even though he's from the realms of the Elf-Lord expansion, he's been around a long time, he's still an absolute staple of the format. So that's Elrond, Herald to Gilgaled at number 7. Moving on then to number 6. We have another older card that is a staple still of the format, and that is Aragorn, Ranger of the North. This is just a fantastic Aragorn. In Elves and Men, for example, you'll see a full 4 copies because he will be your mainstay fighter. When you combo this with his sword and with a Last Alliance, you're just getting just a hugely beefy character. And that's that's the primary use of him. The secondary use, in terms of splashing, that's just fantastic, is that you can splash a one of this, and there's a number of movie block decks that will just play one copy of Aragorn. And that's really excellent for two things. Number one, you can just sit him on the table. He takes up one companion slot, of course, by doing that, but you just sit him on the table, and then if you get swarmed, you're just impervious to swarm, because he can take on 4 minions if he has to. So it makes it just very difficult for your opponent to swarm you. And like I said, combine him with his Anduril, that gives him an extra exertion that he can take another defender +1. So just an absolute fantastic card, whether you're fighting, whether you're using him to ward off a swarm, or kind of his final use, which is you're using him as a sacrifice companion. He works fantastic for that too. If you just play him down and say, hey, I'm going to play Aragorn, and then I'm literally just going to have him fight my opponent's entire team, because he can fight 4 people at once, and just take all those wounds on Aragorn. He'll be exhausted anyway, and he'll just eat all those wounds to death and go to the dead pile. But again, if you're using it as a splash companion, that's a perfect use for that. And it's hard to find when you play one copy, it's hard to find a single 1 card in your deck that'll be more impactful than that. So again, just an absolute staple for splashing, but also a huge staple for preventing swarm and for elves and men. So that is Aragorn, Ranger of the North, at number 6. Then at number 5, we have a multiple cards, and that is alternate Ringbearers. So I'm kind of combining these 3 guys into one just to discuss. If I had to pick one, it would be Gimli. But why alternate Ringbearers are so good is that, you don't have to use Frodo, and that way you can really create more decks. So this Gimli, for example, is pretty much solely responsible for dwarves being its own deck in the movie block. Obviously, combining it with Durin, because Durin requires you to spot 2 dwarves, it means your Ringbearer will need to be a dwarf for that to work out, unless you're playing like Dwarven Guard crap or something. But for you to have it done legitimately, you need Gimli and then another elf, Gimli and another dwarf, so that you can play your Durin. So it's huge for that. Gimli's also just a really good fighter, and really good with damage +1. You can pair him up with the Ring of Fury, and then do some synergies with Blood's Run Chill, and basically really just a very good card to be starting the Fellowship with. There's synergies you can do with Gimli and Legolas, and shoulder to shoulder and wounding. So just a fantastic guy to have for your Ringbearer. But not to leave out the other 2, Isildur is great, specifically for knights, because he is a knight, and then gives your knight, he's not a knight, but he gives your other knights a global +1 bonus. That's just fantastic. He's also just good if you're playing, a Gondor deck and just want all Gondor men. He's going to be a better option than Frodo. And then finally, Boromir is great for like a noble leaders deck. You can start Boromir, Denethor, and Faramir and get all 3 of that family, and then you just get an instant triple token on noble leaders. So that's a really cool deck that you can make too, that's enabled by the Bearer of Counsel. Those are, like I said, alternate Ringbearers introduced by the Reflections expansion that really expand upon your ability to make and play different decks, and really are impactful on the movie block format. So that's why our alternate Ringbearers come in at our number 5 spot. Then moving on here to the number 4 spot. You guys are probably not surprised to see this on my list. That is Legolas Greenleaf. This is probably my favorite Lord of the Rings card, and one of for sure my top 5 foils. Just the way the background is foiled in this and is blue and has the shiny, I guess I don't even know in the movie what that is because it's blurred, but what looks like the lights in the background there. Just a beautiful, absolute beautiful card. And then in terms of its playability, Greenleaf is second to none. You guys know it works in straight elves, it works in elves and men, it works in archery, it works as a splash companion even in other decks. Like I said, I know the movie block Rohan deck even plays a couple of this, just because getting these archery phase wound any minion is just so good and synergizes with so many different things. You combine it with Eyegloss to do more of it. You combine it with Elrond to do more of it. Just not enough good can be said about Greenleaf, but he's, again, just a very simple, straightforward, elegant design. So you guys kind of all know how that works and know why it's so good. But an absolute staple of mini decks in the movie block format is Legolas Greenleaf. So he takes home our number 4 spot. Then the next card we have is highly impactful, highly splashable. You see it in nearly every deck, and that is Radagast the Brown. So again, this is another card introduced from Reflections that really turns the format on its head, really just because it allows triple moving with no restriction. So what I mean by that is there's no spot requirement, so any deck can just splash a Radagast, and he just natively on his own text makes the move limit +1. And also how that works, if you don't know, is once he hits the table, that move limit +1 is good for the turn. So if he dies, you continue to maintain the +1 limit, so you can still triple move. And then the huge benefit, though, is what doesn't stick around is that each time the Fellowship moves during the regroup phase, opponent can discard 2 to draw 2. If Radagast is no longer on the table, you no longer have that drawback. So it's just a absolutely fantastic card. For that reason, you see 1 to 2 copies of this in, many movie block decks. Anyone that wants to be able to triple move, this is your go-to companion for that. And like I said, it's so easily splashable. It's just a fantastic card. Statistically, it's a decent body on its own with an 8 power and a 4 vitality, where it can, draw a few wounds before it dies too. And just, tripling from 3 to 6, Sanctuary to Sanctuary, or even tripling from 6 to 9, it keeps the game so interesting, because even if your opponent is a bit far ahead and you just triple from 6 to 9 and win, it really makes different dynamics of the game. So hugely impactful, hugely splashable. Our number 3 spot is Radagast the Brown. Then our number 2 spot goes to Sam, the Son of Hamfast. This is Radagast second only to Sam, Son of Hamfast, in terms of splashability. You'll see this Sam in virtually every single movie block deck. It'll protect you if your opponent is doing any sort of a burden strategy, making sure you don't get up to 5 burdens for an Inkea, making sure that if you wanted to bid higher to go first and you've got a couple of these in your deck, knowing that you can take your burdens down and use this as a burden speed bump where you just remove 3 burdens and kill it. Also, it has the secondary function of if your Ringbearer is Frodo, then you can use this as an alternate bearer, and makes it much harder to kill you. And if your bearer is not Frodo, he's going to be all the more essential because, as you probably know, our alternate Ringbearers generally have fairly poor vitality, and so using Sam to keep those burdens low is actually even more important in an alternate Ringbearer deck. So he just does so much for so little cost with no downsides, no drawbacks, and he's so splashable. He's definitely the most frequently seen companion, regardless of the type of deck that you're playing in the movie block. So that number 2 spot goes to Sam, the Son of Hamfast. Which brings us to our number 1, which is Galadriel, Lady Redeemed. So Galadriel gets a lot of hate, and rightfully so. She natively costs 3, but if she's in your starting Fellowship, it's a -3. So basically, if you start her, she's free, which quite frankly is just way too cheap for such a good companion. Because her effect, which really just turns the game on its head and makes many shadows just have huge headaches and makes it non-functional for them to play, is this ability of discard an Elven event card from your hand to discard a shadow condition or shadow possession. A few things to note about that. That's in your Fellowship or your regroup phase. That is not limited at all, meaning as many Elven events as you have, you can get rid of that many shadow conditions or possessions. So you got 3 events in your hand, you just slap them down and just for free get rid of 3 shadow possessions or conditions. And that's what's crazy, is it's 0 cost. So it's like literally every Elven event in your deck has an alternate cost of Fellowship or regroup, 0, discard a shadow possession or condition. So that is just so broken, and obviously wasn't play tested enough, or there was a lot of power creep going on because it was the end of kind of the movie block first edition type stuff that was going on. This released Mount Doom right before the 2004 Worlds, so people hadn't even caught on yet as to how broken this was. I think there was like maybe 3 or 4 copies of this in the top 8 because most people were still playing elves and men. But it works great, obviously, in a straight elf strategy, and you can use it in any other strategies that are splashing elves, whether it be archery with double shot, or whether it be, elves and Gandalf or elves and Gimli. There's a number of ways, obviously, to sneak Galadriel into your deck, and then just having a bunch of what look like semi-useless elven events, just become broken cancelers of everything that your opponent tries to do. Your opponent plays Promise Keeping for 4, and then you just discard it for free. Stuff like that is just going to sting so badly for the shadow player. So that's, you guys know Galadriel. She's very controversial. Like I said, she would have been banned had this format continued on, and a lot of people who play house rule movie block tournaments will just say no Galadriel, Lady Redeemed. The Players Council for the PC formats have made an errata version of this, which is nice. But again, we're talking right now just about standard movie block. And in standard movie block, there's really second to none in terms of impact and warping of the format than Galadriel, Lady Redeemed. So there she is. So there is, I'll just lay out for you here our top 10 again, just to have a look. We've got Galadriel number 1. We've got Sam, Son of Hamfast 2. We've got Radagast the Brown number 3. We've got Legolas Greenleaf number 4. And I'm not actually going to thumbnail this though, because I want this to be not shown which my picks are. So that people have to actually watch the video to get that. We've got our alternate Ringbearers at number 5. Then we've got Aragorn at 6, Elron at 7, Faramir at 8, Gilgaled at 9, and Éowyn at 10. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think some of these are out of order. Like I said, there's a lot of subjectivity to the ordering of these, but let me know if you feel like there's other movie block cards that should have been on this list that I failed to mention. Again, we're sticking just to companions though for this video, or excuse me, characters. So companions and allies. So if you know of any other key companions and allies that we didn't mention, feel free to throw that down in the comments and have discussion about that. But this was my list, like I said, with my intended order of how good they are in terms of impact on the movie format. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this top 10 format. Don't forget to subscribe. If you guys like this, we'll do more of this in the future, but I thought this was a nice list to kind of go along with the discussions that we have, because when you're building and making decks in the format, you're going to want to know what are the key cards that I might be facing regardless of deck, and this is kind of the list of that from my perspective. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.